Have you ever wondered why billionaires wear the same outfit every day? Why they'll spend $1 million on a private jet but refuse to attend a 2-hour meeting? Why they obsess over every minute of their calendar like it's made of gold? Here's what nobody tells you. It's not about being eccentric. It's not about showing off. They've figured out something that most people spend their entire lives missing. The rich don't just value their time. They treat it like the most valuable currency they'll ever have. And once you understand why, you'll never look at your own time the same way again. Most of us are playing a completely different game. We're trading hours for dollars. We're saying yes to things that drain us. We're spending our most precious resource like it's unlimited. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Time is the one thing you can never get back. You can lose money and make it again. You can rebuild relationships. You can move to a new city. But once a minute is gone, it's gone forever. And the wealthy? They've internalized this at a level most people never reach. They've built their entire lives around protecting, optimizing, and leveraging their time. Not because they're smarter, not because they're more disciplined, but because they understand something fundamental about how wealth actually works. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Here's what's really happening. Most people think the rich focus on time because they're busy, because they have so much going on, because their time is literally worth more per hour. That's not it at all. The wealthy treat time as their most valuable currency because they understand something most people miss. Money is renewable. Time is not. You can always make another dollar. You can never make another minute. Think about how most people approach their finances. They'll spend 30 minutes driving across town to save $5 on groceries. They'll waste 3 hours researching to save $50 on a purchase. They'll take a job they hate because it pays $15,000 more per year. They're optimizing for money. The rich are optimizing for time. And here's where it gets really interesting. Once you have enough money, adding more doesn't change your life that much. Going from $50,000 to $100,000? That's life-changing. Going from $5 million to $10 million? You probably won't even notice in your day-to-day life. But time? Time is always scarce. Whether you're broke or a billionaire, you get the same 24 hours, the same limited number of years on this planet, the same biological clock counting down. This is why Warren Buffett once said he'd pay any amount of money to be young again. Not because he wants more time to make money, because he wants more time, period. The first thing wealthy people understand is what I call the replacement cost principle. And it's going to change how you think about everything. Here's how it works. For every task, every commitment, every activity in your life, there's a replacement cost. That's what it would cost to have someone else do it for you. And once your time becomes valuable enough, you start looking at everything through this lens. Let me give you a specific example. Say you make $100,000 a year. That's roughly $50 per hour. Now, your car needs washing. You could spend an hour doing it yourself, or you could pay $25 to have someone else do it. Most people do it themselves. They think they're saving $25, but they're not. They're trading an hour of their life, an hour they could spend with their kids, or learning a new skill, or working on a side project, for $25. They're valuing their time at $25 per hour when it's actually worth $50. The wealthy flip this equation. They ask, what's the highest and best use of my time right now? And if something falls below that threshold, they find someone else to do it. But here's what makes this really powerful. It's not just about outsourcing chores. It's about protecting your mental bandwidth. Every decision you make depletes your mental energy. Every small task takes up space in your brain. Every commitment fragments your attention. The wealthy understand that their real competitive advantage isn't their time, it's their focus. Their ability to direct their full mental capacity toward high-leverage activities. This is why Mark Zuckerberg wears the same gray t-shirt every day. Not because he can't afford other clothes, because deciding what to wear depletes decision-making energy he'd rather spend on Facebook. That's the replacement cost principle at the extreme. Now, you might be thinking, I don't make enough money to hire people for everything. And you're right. But you're missing the deeper principle here. It's not about having money to outsource. It's about developing the mindset that your time has value. Real, quantifiable value. Once you start thinking this way, everything changes. You stop saying yes to things that don't serve you. You stop engaging in activities that drain your energy. You start asking, is this worth my time? The second principle is what I call time leverage, and this is where the rich really separate themselves from everyone else. Most people trade time for money in a linear way. They work an hour, they get paid for an hour. They work 40 hours, they get paid for 40 hours. There's a direct, one-to-one relationship. The wealthy have broken this equation entirely. They've figured out how to get paid for the same hour multiple times, or how to create value that compounds over time, or how to build systems that generate returns while they sleep. Think about it this way. When you work a job, you're renting out your time. When you build a business, you're creating an asset. When you invest, you're making your money work for you. When you create content, you're doing the work once and getting paid forever. This is why the rich are obsessed with leverage. Not because they're lazy, because they understand that time is finite. If you're trading time for money in a one-to-one ratio, you've capped your potential. There are only so many hours in a day. But if you can create systems, build assets, and leverage other people's time, there's no ceiling. Let me give you a concrete example. A lawyer might charge $300 per hour. That's good money. But they're still capped. They can only work so many billable hours. They're still trading time for money. Now take that same lawyer and have them write a book, or create an online course, or build a legal tech startup. Suddenly, they're not trading hours for dollars. They're creating something that can generate value indefinitely. 1 hour of work can now reach thousands of people, can generate income for years, can compound in ways that hourly billing never could. This is what the wealthy understand. Time leverage isn't about working less. It's about making sure that when you do work, the value of that work isn't limited to the hours you put in. And here's the thing most people miss. You don't need to be rich to start thinking this way. You just need to start asking, how can I create more value per unit of time? How can I make this effort compound? How can I build assets instead of just earning income? The third principle is the opportunity cost mindset, and this one is brutal once you really understand it. Every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to everything else you could be doing. Every hour you spend on one activity is an hour you can't spend on another. Every commitment you make closes off other possibilities. The wealthy are ruthless about this. They don't just ask if something is good. They ask if it's the best use of their time right now. They don't just consider what they'll gain. They consider what they'll lose by saying yes. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. Say someone invites you to serve on a nonprofit board. It's a good cause. It'll take 4 hours per month. Most people think, can I spare 4 hours per month? That seems manageable. The wealthy think differently. They think, what else could I do with 48 hours per year? Could I spend that time with my family? Could I use it to build my business? Could I invest it in my health? Could I deploy it in a way that creates more impact? They're not being selfish. They're being strategic. They understand that time is a zero-sum game. Every hour has to come from somewhere. And here's what makes this particularly challenging. The opportunity cost of your time isn't fixed. It changes as you grow. Something that was worth your time last year might not be worth your time today. Something that made sense when you were starting out might not make sense once you've built momentum. The wealthy constantly reassess. They regularly audit their calendar. They ask, what am I doing that I shouldn't be? What commitments have I outgrown? What activities are no longer serving me? This is why successful people are often accused of being flaky or hard to reach. It's not because they think they're better than you. It's because they've internalized the opportunity cost mindset. They know that every yes is 1,000 no's, and they protect their time accordingly. But here's what nobody wants to admit. This requires saying no, a lot, to good things, to nice people, to opportunities that sound appealing. And that's uncomfortable. Most people avoid this discomfort. They say yes to things they don't really want to do. They let their calendar fill up with other people's priorities. They drift through life being responsive instead of intentional. The wealthy embrace the discomfort. They'd rather feel awkward saying no than waste their most precious resource saying yes to the wrong things. The fourth principle is what I call strategic energy management. And this is where things get really interesting. The wealthy don't just think about time. They think about energy. Because here's the thing. Not all hours are created equal. An hour when you're fresh and focused is worth 10 times an hour when you're depleted and distracted. Think about your own experience. You probably have certain times of day when you're sharp, when ideas flow easily, when you can tackle complex problems, and other times when you're just going through the motions, when everything feels harder than it should. Most people ignore this. They treat all hours the same. They schedule their day based on what fits, not what optimizes their energy. They'll take meetings during their peak creative hours. They'll do deep work when they're tired. They'll waste their best mental state on email. The wealthy do the opposite. They're almost obsessive about matching their energy to their tasks. They protect their peak hours like they're made of gold. They structure their day around their natural rhythms. Let me give you a specific example. A lot of successful people won't take meetings before noon. Not because they're lazy, because their morning hours are when they're most creative, most focused, most capable of deep work. They know that a single hour of deep work in the morning is worth 3 hours of fragmented work in the afternoon. So they protect those hours ruthlessly. They use them for their highest leverage activities: strategic thinking, creative work, important decisions, the things that actually move the needle. And then they batch their lower energy activities, meetings, email, administrative tasks. They handle these when they're not at their peak, when they need structure and external accountability to stay focused. This isn't about working less. It's about working smarter. It's about recognizing that energy is as important as time, maybe more important, because you can have all the time in the world, but if you're exhausted, distracted, and depleted, that time is worthless. You'll spend hours accomplishing what you could have done in minutes if you were in the right state. The wealthy understand this. They don't just manage their calendar, they manage their energy. They think about what activities drain them and what activities fuel them. They structure their life to maximize their high-energy hours and minimize their low-energy obligations. And here's the part most people miss. This isn't just about productivity. It's about quality of life. When you're working with your energy instead of against it, everything feels easier. You're less stressed, more effective, actually engaged with what you're doing. The fifth principle is the compound effect of time, and this might be the most powerful one of all. Here's what most people don't realize. Small differences in how you spend your time create massive differences in outcomes over years. Not because of the individual days, but because of how those days compound. Think about it like compound interest. If you invest $100 at 10% annual return, after 1 year you have $110. Not that impressive. But after 30 years, you have $1,745. The same principle applies to time. If you spend 1 hour per day learning a valuable skill, after a year, you've invested 365 hours. That's enough to become genuinely proficient at almost anything. After 5 years, you're an expert. After 10 years, you're world class. But most people don't think this way. They think about today, this week, this month. They make decisions based on immediate gratification rather than long-term compound effects. The wealthy are playing a different game. They're thinking in decades. They're asking, where will this hour put me in 5 years? In 10 years? In 20 years? And they're making decisions accordingly. This is why Warren Buffett spent years just reading and learning before he made his fortune. Why Bill Gates still takes reading weeks. Why successful people are obsessive about continuous learning. Not because they need more information, because they understand that knowledge compounds. Every book you read gives you frameworks that help you understand the next book better. Every skill you develop opens doors to new skills. Every relationship you build introduces you to new relationships. Everything compounds. But here's the cruel part. So does wasted time. An hour spent on social media doesn't just cost you that hour. It costs you all the compound returns you could have gotten from spending that hour differently. It's not just the immediate opportunity cost, it's the lifetime opportunity cost. Let me make this concrete. Say you spend 1 hour per day watching TV versus 1 hour per day building a side business. After 1 day, the difference is small. After 1 year, you might have a fledgling business versus nothing. After 5 years, you might have a thriving company versus still nothing. After 10 years, you might have financial freedom versus being stuck in the same place. The difference isn't the hours, it's what those hours compound into. This is why the wealthy are so protective of their time. They're not just thinking about today, they're thinking about what today becomes. They understand that time is the ultimate compounding asset. But here's what nobody wants to admit. This means making choices. Hard choices. Choosing learning over entertainment. choosing building over consuming, choosing long-term over short-term, over and over and over again. And that's uncomfortable, because most of the compound returns won't show up for years. You have to delay gratification, trust the process. Keep investing in activities that won't pay off today but will pay off massively over time. The wealthy have made peace with this discomfort. They've internalized that the game isn't about today. It's about what today builds toward. Let me tell you about two people. Both started in similar places. Both had the same opportunities, but they approached time completely differently. Meet Sarah. Sarah is smart, hardworking. She cares about her career, but she's constantly busy. Her calendar is packed. She says yes to everything, every meeting, every project, every social obligation. She prides herself on being helpful, on being available, on being responsive. But here's what Sarah doesn't realize. She's drowning in other people's priorities. Her days are fragmented. She's constantly context switching, jumping from one thing to another, never really getting deep work done. She spends her mornings in meetings that could have been emails, her afternoons catching up on tasks that accumulated while she was in meetings, her evenings responding to messages and preparing for tomorrow's meetings. She's always busy but never really productive. Sarah tells herself she doesn't have time to work on her big goals, to learn new skills, to build something meaningful. She's too busy keeping up with everything else. She'll get to that important stuff later, when things calm down, when she has more time. But things never calm down. There's never more time, because Sarah keeps saying yes, keeps filling her calendar, keeps prioritizing urgent over important. She's trapped in a cycle of busyness that feels productive but leads nowhere. 5 years pass. Sarah is still busy, still helpful, still available, but she hasn't really advanced. She's in essentially the same place she was, just older and more exhausted. Now meet David. David started in the same position as Sarah. Same opportunities, same challenges, but he approached time differently from the start. David said no, a lot. He turned down meetings that weren't essential, declined projects that didn't align with his goals, protected his calendar like it was sacred. And yes, this made some people uncomfortable. Some people thought he was difficult, unavailable, not a team player. But here's what David was doing with that protected time. He was learning, building, creating. He spent his mornings on deep work, his peak hours on his most important projects, his energy on things that compounded. He wasn't busier than Sarah. He was more intentional. He wasn't working more hours. He was working on better things. He wasn't more talented. He just understood the value of his time. David spent 1 hour every day for 5 years building expertise in his field, reading, practicing, creating. While Sarah was in meetings, David was learning. While Sarah was responding to emails, David was building. While Sarah was saying yes to everyone else's priorities, David was investing in his own. 5 years later, David isn't in the same place. He's not even playing the same game anymore. He's built real expertise, created real value, positioned himself for opportunities Sarah doesn't even know exist. The difference wasn't talent. It wasn't luck. It wasn't connections. It was how they treated their time. Sarah treated it like it was abundant. David treated it like it was precious. Here's what most people don't realize. The difference between successful people and everyone else isn't about having more time. Everyone has the same 24 hours. It's not about working harder. Plenty of busy people go nowhere. It's about understanding that time is your most valuable currency. And once you really internalize this, at a deep level, everything changes. You stop doing things out of obligation. You stop saying yes when you mean no. You stop letting other people's urgency become your priority. You stop confusing motion with progress. You start being ruthless about what deserves your time. You start protecting your calendar. You start investing in activities that compound. You start optimizing for energy, not just productivity. And most importantly, you start thinking long-term. You recognize that the hours you spend today will compound into the life you have tomorrow. That every choice about time is really a choice about who you're becoming. The wealthy aren't smarter than you. They don't have special powers. They just understand something fundamental. Money can be made, lost, and made again. Relationships can be rebuilt. Careers can be restarted. But time? Time only flows in one direction. Once it's gone forever. You can't buy it back. You can't earn more of it. You can't save it up for later. All you can do is choose how to spend it. Wisely or wastefully. Intentionally or randomly. On things that matter or things that don't. The rich treat time like their most valuable currency because it is. It's the only truly scarce resource, the only thing that can't be replaced, the only asset that's constantly depleting whether you use it well or waste it completely. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. How are you spending your most valuable currency? Are you investing it in things that compound? Or are you just spending it? Are you protecting it ruthlessly? Or are you giving it away to anyone who asks? Are you treating it like it's precious? Or like it's unlimited? Because the truth is, it's not unlimited. None of us know how much we have left. All we know is that every minute that passes is a minute we'll never get back. The question is, what are you going to do with the ones you have left?